Episode 5, Winners at War. Did you like it as much as I did? Episode 5 is not that far into the season, but it is farther into the season than I would have wanted to allow someone as dangerous as Rob to go. So that's part of why I'm giggly. But let's unpack it. Let's take a look at what happened last night. If you've looked at any of my videos on this YouTube channel, if you've been following and watching as I've put these clips out, I hope you're getting a sense that meaningfulness is important to me. As much as I've tried to share survivor-related information, why I'm not on the show for Winners at War, etc., that's really not my life. That's not what my life is about. I hope you're getting that sense. And last night, on episode 5, Winners at War, I was really positively impressed with Yule and with Yule's commentary about Jonathan Penner and his wife. I thought that was real and sincere and meaningful. And I thought it took the wonderful fan base that Survivor has and introduced them in a very important way to something really real. Something that hopefully shakes you for a minute while you're watching the episode and goes, gosh, I really can enjoy Survivor, and I can enjoy taking a leak and taking a walk and going for a swim. But you know, others can't. This world in which we live, there are lots of people suffering for lots of different reasons. And that can become overwhelming if you let it. But rather than let it be overwhelming, my hope is that what can happen is that we can, as people, Survivor fans, viewers, keep life in perspective. That's all my goal is. My goal is to help folks keep life in perspective. And when you think about what Jonathan and his wife must be enduring, and when you see that last night, we saw the clip of Jonathan and his wife, and we heard Yule, saw Yule reacting to his friends' troubles, his friends' real life struggles. I thought that was powerful. I thought it let me, and I hope it lets you, reflect on how good life is for me most of the time. Yet how important it is for me to remember it's not good for so many. And I don't care that I was watching Survivor when I had the opportunity to reflect on something like that. I loved that that was incorporated into the show. I loved seeing Yule that sensitive, that engaging, that honest, that open, that real. It didn't take away from his game, and it was powerful for me, as you can tell, because I've spent a little more time on it now than I might on, oh, he said this or he said that. But I hope you think about that. Moving forward, isn't Yule bright? Don't you like the way in which he engages the others? Don't you love how cautious he is about what he's thinking? He let himself get emotionally involved in something that was real, and he was able to talk about it with us, and then he had to fold himself back into the game. His goals with respect to the game may even be to help, Jonathan and his wife. Many of the players may have such really respectable goals that we don't see. But we can at least pause, think about what took place and is taking place in their lives now, and then go back to being entertained in a way that lets us kind of let things go for a little while the show is on. Meantime, without even knowing it, being challenged to introspectively evaluate, what would you do? What would they do? Why would she do that? I wouldn't do that. So we're being challenged even in the show that's entertainment. So on we go. How about Rob? Right in the beginning, tribe swap. And I love Rob's concerned, cautious commentary with respect to what happens when tribes swap. Rob is a control freak. That's Rob's game. I don't know that it's something that can be maintained time and again. Once somebody understands that that's your game, that you need a certain level of control, I think it's unwise and far too risky to employ that same strategy over and over again. But it still seems to be Rob's mode. It doesn't seem as if he has more tools in his toolbox so that he could vary it up sufficiently to not be targeted himself. We know he's a threat. He's played the game so many times. He's had so many opportunities to get skilled at being decent in the game. He should know to have switched it up more. And that being as controlling as he is would undermine any chances moving forward. So this context in the beginning where he's talking about the tribe swap and how he's losing control was my first clue, my first peek into how this episode might unfold. I think it was pretty telling, and I'm impressed with players that even though they took him out or are planning to take him out earlier than I would have imagined or would have wanted to, it's still pretty early in the game, and it will give folks an opportunity to reassess, refocus, and retarget other players. And make no mistake about it, Rob's commentary about how tribe swaps destabilize the game and his particular game specifically is intentional. There's no question but that the times that tribes are swapped are particularly and specifically intended to destabilize things. When players aren't prepared for that destabilization, they aren't playing Survivor well. That's the adaptability I've always talked about. That's the awareness and flexibility with which you have to live your life while in the midst of the game. Exhausting, but necessary to survive. How many of you are paying attention to Kim? How many of you noticed her skillfully calm demeanor? I'm so impressed with Kim. Always have been. Told her so from the first time she played. I loved watching last night as she articulated for Denise and Jeremy what she thought and was probing to learn where there might be some bondability, some opportunity to move forward together. I think Denise, Jeremy, and Kim are all bright players. I love and was really super impressed with Kim's particular demeanor last night as she started to talk with them. I hope you as a viewer noticed that. And I hope you were thinking, I wonder what she'll do with that. I wonder what impact it will have on Denise and Jeremy, never mind other players. But in that particular instance, in the beginning of episode 5, as she's talking with Denise, I was confident that that kind of calmness, that kind of directness, because I know Denise as a good person too, would play well with Denise. And Denise would use that as an example of reasoning to rely, to the extent that one needs to rely on others, on Kim. So I hope viewers saw that. Who knows how this will play out, how they will interact in the rest of the game, but it's these moments that give us a little bit of insight into really, really effective players' playbooks, how their game is being played out. Go with me now for a second. Try and think back when you watched the episode. What were you thinking about Tony? I want to point something out because I've talked often about what I can only describe as his frenetic gameplay. And almost always I talk about it with a negative connotation. Proud of that. I stand by it. It is haphazard in a way that is dangerous. But it is a little more complicated than that as well, I think. And I want to point that out because something I noticed last night. Last night, he was talking about lions and hyenas, and, you know, he wasn't even as frenetic as he often is. But what I thought about was that freneticism and these comments about the lions will eat the hyenas and the who knows, and that kind of always playing with whomever he's around, puts him in a weirdly interesting position, particularly during Winners at War. So there are so many other big targets who aren't doing that. And so good players must be concerned about what are they doing and be worried about when they might have the opportunity to take them out. And on the flip side, there are other players, whether they're, you know, well-known great players or not, who aren't really being noticed at all. Even Yule, for example, who's being very calm, and others, Kim, who's very calm, Denise, Jeremy, they're not really exposing themselves with big moves, big comments, control moves, etc. So where does that leave Tony? Oddly, last night I thought to myself, that leaves Tony in a weird middle ground. That leaves him kind of making noise frenetically that everyone's kind of aware of, but almost comfortably because, oh, there's Tony. Spinning his wheels still, you know, going here and going there. And I wonder if in some odd way, whether it's intended by him or not, and I just don't think it's intended. I'm sorry, Tony, but in a position where it helps him that people aren't paying too much attention because that's just frenetic Tony. Keeping him in that middle ground, which might enable him to move further in the game than somebody who's making those big control moves or somebody who's not doing anything and who might be perceived as either an easy pickoff or dangerous because they're so craftily plotting that it's hard to notice what they're doing. That's just a moth that went across my screen last night, so I figured I'd share it with you. And maybe those are some of the things you think about. I have to this point always said how frustrating it is to watch Tony, who seems to understand the game, be so frenetic. And I couldn't find reasons that it might benefit him. But again, intended or not, I think there might be something last night that was beneficial in the way he was just kind of being himself. You can let me know what you think in the commentary.
Parvati's eye contact is unmatched. It is really important in this game, and she's brilliant.
One of the ways that I am able to share my thoughts about each of the episodes is that I do little memos on my iPhone. As the show is unfolding, I'll just hit the memo button and fire off a note to remind myself what to share or what thought I'm having in the midst of something I'm seeing. And I think that gives me an opportunity to be helpful to viewers who are trying to understand the way I look at the game. Not that you all don't look at the game well too. There are many of you out there who haven't played who I think would be good players because of the sophisticated way in which you think about how the game might be played. So here's another little tidbit about what I noticed last night, and I wonder how often you all think about it. Parvati's eye contact. Wow. It is spectacularly important, spectacularly valuable for her, the way she so firmly and sincerely makes contact with whomever she's talking and communicates this sense of sincerity that's really, really difficult to do within a game that all players know players shouldn't be trusted. Last night particularly, as she was talking with Nick, and Nick was sharing with her how he had a crush on her, Parvati's brilliantly beautiful eye contact and gorgeous smile was in full force in the midst of that interaction and that conversation. Yet in the confessional, Parvati turned straight to the camera and just shared with us how uncomfortable it was to listen to that, and her face changed and she, shivered a little bit and that kind of thing. Absolutely none of that. Not one iota of discomfort, not one shiver, not one even slight glint in her eye contact with Nick when the story was actually unfolding from him. She saves all that realness, that truth for you, the viewer, to give it in the confessional. I think that's brilliant. It's how I play the game. Here I am patting myself on the back, sorry. I think that's incredibly considerate of her, thinking about viewers and able to share her real thoughts as she moves through the game. We as viewers who can contrast then what she shares with what we see as she's playing can get little giggles, can get some joy out of watching skillfulness unfold in this amazing game of Survivor and the world that is, all psychological. I love it. How about with the tribe swap and now in the 3 groups? How about Ben? Yeah. God, he's a beautiful man. He really is the epitome of masculinity. In so many shots last night, I just thought, wow, he's just strikingly handsome. But I know. Get on with the game. As he talked when he was describing the new group that he found himself in, I hope you got a sense of just how discombobulated they are. They were, I know the real word is discombobulated, but he really helped it be clear, I think, how the overlap of players who undermined one another just kind of all landed in one group. And throughout, you can see on Rob's face just the stress of that. And Rob, knowing that Adam had, gone after him, and Rob had, undermined Adam's attempt to go after him, and Ben had done the same in the same mix, and here are these girls, these women on the outs, supposedly, who are calmly able to connect with one another and think about how to move forward. It's a really unstable, destabilized, that was the intention of splitting into these groups, group. And so, again, here's another clue for me as I'm watching the show about what could this team do? They really are in jeopardy if they don't win challenges. Challenges aren't the end all, as I keep saying, to winning this game. But if you lose them, you are less likely to do well in such an unstable group. So that's got to be scary. I hope you saw last night. You could see in all of their faces on that team the cost of that destabilization. They were all stressed. Wasn't that fun to watch? And to anticipate what might happen? Oh. A lot of you longtime fans probably recognize that I hold back oftentimes from praising Rob. Not always. There are many things I see him do well. But there are so many things, too, that I see him do that I find almost incomprehensible, given the number of opportunities he's had to play the game. And last night, another one unfolded right in front of my eyes that I thought, I can't really believe I'm hearing this. And it sounds real. It's what he's actually thinking, because he's telling the viewers, not other players. As he was looking, or not even really looking, but as he was supposed to be looking for an idol, Rob was talking about how hard that is, how difficult that is for him. He said, I don't really even know how to do this. You know, this is all new to me. And this is what I get in emails and contact from fans who say, well, I don't think you'd do well in a new game anyway because you don't know how to find idols or any of the new stuff. What are you talking about? Have you not watched Survivor? Rob, how the hell could you wonder how to look for an idol? There is nothing more straightforward than figuring out, after you've known that idols are part of the game, how to pursue them, how to find them, what to do. And the idea that you're stressed and don't know what to do is just indicative of that underlying thing that keeps me from praising you more often. You've had many, many opportunities, and yes, you've ended up far along in the game. But I keep believing that it's in spite of yourself rather than because of your skill. It's because other players aren't as skilled as they should be at this point in Survivor's history, rather than because you are so skillful. And that's just evidence of it for me last night. Complaining about not knowing what to do when other people are looking for an idol and you're supposed to be too. Oh, for crying out loud, go find the idol. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's not like that's trigonometry or advanced calculus that you haven't had a course in. It's finding an idol. Ee-yi-yi. How about the Sophie, Sarah vibe last night in that tribe? I loved it. I loved the sincerity with which they communicated with one another. I loved the way they thought about the possibilities associated with what the different players might do. I loved the way in which they were calm in their doing that. Certainly you saw their concern, which is of course legitimate because you can't ever know for certain what people are doing. But I thought it was brilliantly handled. I thought they did really, really well, and I thought it was, like watching Kim, another opportunity to watch how to interact with one another in this game in productive ways, in ways that would linger with the person with whom you're interacting positively. It would enable those people, when you've moved on or moved over here, to think about you as someone with whom they might reconnect, someone upon whom they might be able to rely later in the game. Those are all more valuable than money in this game, more valuable than the tokens, I think, until we find out what they're all really about. More valuable, certainly, than some one particular little advantage to have a player upon whom you think you can really rely could serve you over and over and over. And Sophie and Sarah's conversation last night gave us an example of how it's done, how it should be done. So the challenge ends and the most disjointed team loses. Here we see Rob and Adam and Ben and the two women facing tribal council. What are your thoughts? What's going on in your head? In my head, I'm thinking these two women are more in the catbird seat than they think. They're the only stability, really, within that mix. And so as I watched that team lose, I thought those men are in jeopardy. And I watched intensely thereafter to see if what would play out would be even similar to what I might do. And as effective as has been Adam's gameplay sometimes, and Ben's perhaps even more often, I hoped, with all of my hoping, that Sarah and Sophie would bond with anyone to take out Rob. It's an opportunity that I thought would have been horrible to kind of let go. So that's where my head was immediately when that challenge ended. Certainly I was thinking that the disjointedness and the way in which it unfolded, that they ended up on one team together, contributed to them losing that challenge. But my head immediately went to, what does that look like then, heading back to camp, preparing for tribal council? There's no way Rob wasn't wetting his pants. Okay, so back at camp, what are you thinking? When you see Rob start with the handshakes, I'm not writing your name down. I'm not writing your name down. I'm not writing your name down. Oy, oy, oy. We're in season 40. Not season 3, season 40, episode 5. And Rob is, I'm not writing your name down, and getting that kind of promise back from Ben and Adam and whoever. What? If anything, someone doing that should be aware of how absurdly risky it is to put yourself in that position. You're in a disjointed tribe and you're taking control. All you do is turn all spotlights, all brains in your direction. Who does he think he is? And I don't know. I just can't give Rob much credit. I feel like he ought to have known better. I feel like he ought to have thought it through, and regardless of how less on the surface some other move may have looked best, to realize how dangerous it was, how incredibly unstable it would be for him to put himself in that target, in that bullseye, by not just with the handshakes and, hey, I'm not voting for you, but okay, so here's what we're doing. We're never leaving camp. None of us. We'll all be able to see each other. Yeah, I'll babysit you is what he's really saying. And both of them just kind of shaking their heads. I wish I knew to what extent they immediately were thinking, oh, dude, you're history. Because I would have been, oh yeah, I'm not voting you out. Oh no, I'm not writing your name down. Bye! Another little subtlety in the midst of that Rob control malarkey, a beautiful bright gem was Sarah. And I wonder how many of you caught this as she talked about how little communication was available, how little planning was really able to be done post-challenge prior to tribal council because of Rob's buddy system and babysitting, his opponents. But still, even in the midst of that, Sarah referred to something that is common within the game and difficult for most people to process, never mind utilize. She talked about winks or thumbs up. Simple, tiny, almost off-the-cuff communications, non-verbal signals that help you understand whether or not somebody is even aware that a game is being played, but then beyond that, that they're trying to signal something about playing with you. I thought it was beautiful to see. I loved hearing her talk about, I think she said something to the effect of, sometimes you have to rely on just a wink or a thumbs up. And she's right. Within the midst of the game, you don't have the opportunity always to flush out every potential pathway forward with every possible participant. So at times, when stressed, you've got to have your wits well enough about you to react to those subtle signals. Which ones are trustworthy? What do they even mean? And I love that she explained it for us. I hope viewers understand the brilliance of it, the subtlety of her gameplay that's involved in understanding that and helping us see it, and then saw and enjoyed the result of her relying on those bits of communication that were available in that really, really stressful time period between losing the challenge and going to tribal council. Good on you, Sarah. I've talked about in this recap a little bit a couple of places where I was triggered to think about what might happen to Rob. But I wonder if you noticed how little communication the edit gave us about the likelihood of his being voted out. I kind of like it, but it keeps reminding me of how in control of what we are thinking at times CBS is with the way they edit the show. I wonder really just how stressed or confident those members of that disjointed team were. It looked as if nobody knew what was happening for so long, but that doesn't seem reasonable to me. In real life, I feel like they must have had more sense, more confidence associated with who they thought was going to go. But anyway, that's the episode. I wonder if you're as kind of hopeful and happy, not necessarily for Rob, it's nothing against Rob, but for the players to have finally removed somebody who all of them know can use his control freak skills to move himself through the game in powerful ways. That's helpful to the subtle players to have such a big distraction out of the way. It will enable them to look back at other people and try to think about those with whom they could build alliances that are longer lasting, that might take them further in the game, and which others are people they might have trouble getting rid of later. I think as long as Rob was there, that distraction prevents some players from seeing much else of what's going on, including what I talked about with Tony. Now maybe people can kind of take a relook, re-examine the players again and think about, now that Rob's out of the way, where do things stand? You do that continuously. That's something that's necessary as a skillful player. But I think it's doubly important when you remove that big a distraction as Rob is. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed that episode. And even more than enjoying the episode, which I really did, I'm still left thinking about Jonathan Penner and his wife. And I hope you are too. You know, 80% of you who are listening to these videos have not subscribed to my channel. Please subscribe. Just hit the subscription button and hit the notification button and you'll be informed when I have another video up for you to listen to. After you've subscribed, comment. Comment positively, comment negatively. No holds barred. Just say what you're thinking. That's what will make our exchange even more valuable. As I'm able, I'll create new videos responsive to that commentary. So like away, or dislike on that rare occasion you may feel the need to do so. But either way, thank you.